Captain Jake Morrison stood at the large window of his ship, watching the strange vessel approach. The alien ship looked nothing like the human ships he knew. It was made of some kind of crystal that sparkled in the light of distant stars. After 30 years of humans moving to new worlds, they had finally met someone else from space. The bridge of the UES Endeavour was quiet, except for the soft beeping of computers. Jake's crew watched their screens carefully. This moment would change everything for the human race. No one knew if these aliens would be friends or enemies. Ambassador Lisa Grant walked up beside Jake. She carried a thick folder of papers in her hands. Lisa had spent her whole life preparing for this day, even though no one was sure it would ever come. She was Earth's first person trained to talk with aliens. Her job was to make sure the first meeting went well. "Captain, are you ready for this?" Lisa asked. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see she was nervous. Her hand shook a little as she held her papers. "As ready as anyone can be for meeting space aliens," Jake replied. He tried to sound calm, but his heart was beating fast. He had fought in wars and explored dangerous new worlds, but this was different. This could decide the future of all humans. Commander. Ryan Blake stood at the weapons control station. He was not pointing any guns at the alien ship, but he was ready if something went wrong. Ryan had been a soldier for 20 years. He did not trust easily, especially when it came to protecting human lives. Dr. Helen Carter was almost jumping, with excitement near her science station. She had studied space and aliens her whole life, but only in theory. Now she might actually meet one. She kept checking her equipment to make sure everything would record properly. "The alien ship is slowing down," reported Lieutenant Danny Foster from his position. "They're sending us a message." The main screen filled with symbols that looked like dancing lights. Then somehow the symbols changed into words that humans could read. The translation was not perfect, but it was good enough. "Greetings, young species of the third planet. We are the Kethani, representatives of the Galactic Conclave. We come in peace to welcome you to the greater community of worlds." Lisa stepped forward. This was her moment. "This is Ambassador Lisa Grant representing the United Earth Government. We are honored to meet you and grateful for your peaceful intentions." The reply came quickly. "We request permission to dock with your vessel so we may meet face to face. Such is the proper way for first contact between civilized species." Jake looked at Ryan, who nodded slowly. The alien ship showed no weapons, and their words seemed friendly. "Permission granted," Jake said. "Please follow our guidance to Docking Bay 2. The next hour was the longest of Jake's life. His crew prepared the docking bay while Lisa reviewed her notes one more time. Dr. Carter set up recording equipment everywhere she could. Ryan positioned security teams throughout the ship, just in case. When the alien ship finally connected to the Endeavour, everyone held their breath. The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss. What stepped through was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The Kethani ambassador was tall and thin, about 7 feet high. Its skin looked like it was made of tiny mirrors that changed color as it moved. It had 4 arms instead of 2, and each arm ended in hands with 6 fingers. Its head was larger than a human head, with big eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "I am Veltar, speaker for the Conclave in this region of space," the alien said. Its voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I bring greetings from 217 species who live in peace among the stars." Lisa stepped forward and bowed slightly, as she had practiced. "Welcome aboard our ship, Speaker Veltar. I am Lisa Grant. We are eager to learn about your conclave and find our place among the stars." Dr. Carter was taking pictures and measurements of everything. She could hardly contain her excitement. This was the greatest moment in human history, and she was here to see it all. Veltar moved in a way that seemed like dancing. Each of its 4 arms moved independently, making gestures that somehow felt welcoming, even though humans had never seen them before. "Your species interests us greatly. You have expanded to many worlds very quickly. Most species we meet are still living on only one planet. Humans are explorers by nature," Lisa explained. We have always wanted to see what lies beyond the next hill or across the next ocean. Space is just another ocean to us. Indeed, Veltar said, and something in its tone made Jake pay closer attention. We have observed your colonies on 17 different star systems. Such rapid expansion is quite unusual for a species so young. Ryan stepped forward slightly. Something about the way the alien said unusual did not sound like a compliment. Is there a problem with humans spreading to new worlds? He asked. Veltar's skin colors shifted to darker shades. Oh no, not a problem exactly. It is simply that the galaxy has certain ways of doing things. Order must be maintained. There are proper procedures for expansion, proper boundaries to respect. Lisa felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Boundaries? We were not aware that space had boundaries. We thought it was free for anyone to explore. Space is vast, young human, but it is not empty of law, Veltar explained. The Conclave has maintained peace for over 3,000 of your years. We do this by making sure everyone follows the same rules and respects the same boundaries. Dr. Carter looked up from her equipment. What kind of boundaries? We haven't met anyone else in the systems where we've built colonies. The absence of current inhabitants does not mean the absence of claims, Veltar said. Many systems are reserved for future use, or held as historical sites, or claimed by species for religious reasons. The galaxy is more complicated than it appears to new species. Jake felt the mood in the room change. What had started as an exciting first contact was beginning to feel like a lecture from a school teacher. Speaker Veltar, are you saying that humans have done something wrong by building colonies? Not wrong exactly, but irregular. Most species contact the Conclave before they leave their home system. They learn the proper ways before they make mistakes. Humans have been expanding for 30 years without guidance. This creates complications. Lisa tried to keep her voice calm. What kind of complications? And what kind of guidance are you talking about? Veltar's four arms moved in what might have been the alien version of a shrug. There are systems where humans have built colonies that are claimed by other species. The Zephyrian Empire has mineral rights to your Kepler colonies. The Trilaxian Collective considers your Wolf 359 settlements to be built on their ancestral lands. The bridge went very quiet. Ryan's hand moved closer to his weapon controls. Jake felt anger building in his chest, but he kept it hidden. Lisa's diplomatic training took over. And what does the Conclave suggest we do about these complications? Lisa asked. The solution is simple, Veltar said, its skin colors brightening again. Humans withdraw from the disputed systems and submit to proper integration protocols. You will be given appropriate territory and full membership in the Conclave. Everyone benefits from following proper procedures. Jake looked at his crew. Ryan's face was hard as stone. Dr. Carter had stopped taking pictures and was staring at the alien. Lisa was thinking fast, trying to find diplomatic words for what everyone was feeling. Speaker Veltar, Jake said slowly. Those colonies you mentioned are home to millions of humans. Families have lived there for decades. Children have been born there. Are you asking us to abandon our own people? Not abandon, Veltar corrected. Relocate. The Conclave will help find suitable worlds for resettlement. The process has been used successfully many times before. The silence stretched on for a long moment. Finally, Lisa spoke. This is a significant decision that requires consultation with our government. We request time to discuss these matters with Earth. Of course, Veltar agreed. Such is proper procedure. We will wait for your response. But remember, young species, the galaxy is much larger than humanity. Wisdom lies in cooperation, not confrontation. As the alien delegation returned to their ship, Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were human families building lives on worlds they thought were theirs. The galaxy had suddenly become a much more dangerous place. 3 weeks had passed since the first meeting with the Caethani. The human delegation now lived on Harmony Point, a huge space station that floated between the stars. The station was bigger than any human city, with sections built by dozens of different alien species. Walking through its corridors was like visiting a museum of strange and wonderful beings. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster sat in her small office, reading reports that made her more worried each day. She was the intelligence officer for the human delegation, which meant her job was to learn everything she could about the aliens they were dealing with. What she had learned was not good news. Amy walked to the meeting room where the other humans were waiting. Ambassador Lisa Grant looked tired. She had been in talks with alien representatives every day for 3 weeks, and the conversations were getting more difficult each time. Dr. Kevin Park, the team's anthropologist, was studying a holographic display that showed the structure of the Galactic Conclave. The display looked like a giant tree with hundreds of branches, each branch representing a different alien species. At the center of the tree were the oldest and most powerful species, while newer members were placed on the outer branches. "Tell me you have some good news, Amy," Lisa said as she poured herself another cup of coffee. It was her 6th cup that morning. Amy shook her head. "I wish I did, but the more I learn about this conclave, the more concerned I become. This isn't just a peaceful alliance like they want us to believe. It's a hierarchy with very strict rules about who gets to do what." She activated a wall screen that showed a map of local space. Red dots marked human colonies, while different colored shapes showed territories claimed by various alien species. The overlap was extensive and troubling. Every single species in the conclave was contacted when they were still living on just their home planet, Amy continued. The conclave guided their expansion, told them which systems they could settle, which resources they could use, and how fast they could grow. No species has ever been allowed to expand freely like humans have done. Dr. Park nodded grimly. The cultural implications are staggering. These aliens have lived under managed expansion for thousands of years. The concept of a species just going out and claiming territory is completely foreign to them. They see it as chaos. Captain Jake Morrison, who had arrived on Harmony Point 2 days earlier, leaned back in his chair. "So we're the first species to color outside the lines and they don't like it?" "It's worse than that," Amy said. She changed the display to show detailed information about the disputed territories. "I've been talking to representatives from the species that claim our colonies. The Zephyrian Empire says they've had mineral rights to the Kepler system for over 800 years. They've never used those rights because they were waiting for the proper time in their long-term development plan." Lisa rubbed her forehead. "And the Trilaxians? They claim Wolf 359 is sacred to them because their ancestors passed through that system during a great migration 2,000 years ago. They consider it a holy site that should remain untouched," Amy replied. "Untouched except for the 2 million humans who live there now," Jake said dryly. Dr. Park brought up another display showing the legal framework of the conclave. "I've been studying their laws, and it's incredibly complex. There are territorial claims, historical claims, religious claims, resource rights, development rights, and something called future use reservations that can be held for centuries." "How are we supposed to know about any of this?" Jake asked. "We've been trying to contact other species for decades. We sent radio signals, we put messages on our space probes, we've been looking for aliens since before we left Earth's solar system." Amy pulled up another report. "That's another problem. The conclave has been watching us for 30 years. They knew we were expanding, they knew we were building colonies, and they never said anything until now." "Why not?" Lisa asked. "Because they were studying us," Dr. Park answered. "Standard conclave protocol is to observe new species for decades before making contact. They want to understand a species completely before deciding how to integrate them into galactic society." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Jake spoke up. "So they watched us build homes and cities and families on worlds they considered off-limits, and they said nothing. Now they want us to pack up and leave because we didn't follow rules we didn't know existed." "That's essentially correct," Amy confirmed. "And there's more. I've identified at least 12 other human colonies that have some kind of claim against them. The disputes over our 17 main colonies are just the beginning." Lisa stood up and walked to the window that looked out into space. Somewhere, out there, millions of humans were living their lives completely unaware that their homes might be taken away. What about the integration protocols they mentioned? What exactly does that involve? Amy activated another display. I've been researching that too. Integration protocols vary by species, but they all have some common elements. The new species gives up the right to independent expansion. The Conclave assigns them specific territories based on their population and needs. Military forces are limited to internal security only, and they have to accept Conclave oversight of their development for at least a century. A century? Jake asked. They want to control human expansion for 100 years? At minimum, Dr. Park added. Some species have been under guided development for much longer. The Conclave believes that unrestricted growth leads to conflict and instability. Lisa turned back to the group. And if we refuse integration? Amy's expression was grim. No species has ever refused. The Conclave has never had to deal with that situation before, which might work in our favor, Jake said. If they don't have experience with resistance, they might not know how to handle it. Or it might make them more determined to force compliance, Dr. Park countered. Unknown situations can trigger extreme responses in rigid hierarchical societies. Commander Wei, Sarah Wells, the mission's legal officer, entered the room carrying a stack of documents. She had been working almost non-stop since arriving at Harmony Point, trying to understand the legal framework that governed galactic civilization. I have the full text of the integration protocols, Sarah announced. And I have bad news and worse news. Give us the bad news first, Lisa said. The integration protocols would require humans to withdraw from all disputed territories immediately. We would be relocated to a designated zone about 1/10 the size of our current space. All human military vessels would be disarmed or destroyed. Earth would lose the right to make independent decisions about expansion, trade, or resource development. Everyone stared at her. That's the bad news? Jake asked. What's the worst news? The worst news is that these protocols are legally binding once signed. There's no withdrawal mechanism, no appeal process, and no time limit. Once a species accepts integration, they remain under Conclave oversight permanently. The silence in the room was deafening. Finally, Amy spoke up. I have more intelligence reports. The Conclave isn't just a peaceful alliance. They have a military force called the Peacekeeping Fleet. It's made up of ships from 47 different species and is supposedly the largest military force in galactic history. How large? Jake asked. Over 10,000 ships, Amy replied. But here's the interesting part. Most of the member species don't maintain significant military forces of their own. They rely on the Conclave's protection. The Peacekeeping Fleet is mostly for show and for handling pirates or other minor threats. Dr. Park looked thoughtful. That makes sense. If you control expansion and resources for everyone, you don't need a large military. The threat of exclusion from galactic society is usually enough to ensure compliance. Lisa sat back down heavily. So we're facing a choice between accepting permanent subjugation or standing alone against the entire galaxy. Not the entire galaxy, Amy corrected. The Conclave represents about 60% of known space. There are independent species and unaligned territories, but they're mostly on the far edges of explored space. Jake stood up and walked to the display showing human colonies. Each red dot represented millions of people who had left Earth seeking a better life among the stars. Has anyone asked the colonies what they want to do? Earth is polling all the colonial governments, Sarah replied. The initial responses are pretty uniform. Nobody wants to abandon their homes and submit to alien rule. Even if the alternative is war? Dr. Park asked. Especially if the alternative is war, Jake said firmly. Humans didn't spread across 30 star systems by running away from fights. Lisa looked around the room at her team. Each of them had spent their careers preparing for the day humans would join galactic civilization. None of them had imagined it would come with such a terrible price. I need to send a message to Earth, Lisa said finally. The government needs to know exactly what we're facing. The Conclave has given us 30 days to make our decision. That's not much time to decide the future of the human race. Amy gathered her reports. I'll keep monitoring Conclave communications. If they're planning something, we might get some advance warning. Dr. Park shut down his displays. I'll continue studying their society. Maybe there's some way to find a compromise. The message from Earth arrived at Harmony Point exactly 26 days after the Conclave had given humanity their ultimatum. Admiral Pete Jackson's face filled the main screen in the human delegation's meeting room. His expression was hard, as steel, and his words were simple and clear. This is Admiral Jackson speaking for the United Earth Government and all human colonies. We have received your reports about the Conclave's demands. We have consulted with every colonial government, every elected representative, and every military commander in human space. Our response is unanimous and final. Humanity does not abandon its own. Ambassador Lisa Grant felt a mixture of relief and terror as she listened to the message. She had known what Earth's response would be, but hearing it made everything real. There would be no compromise, no negotiated settlement. Humanity was choosing to stand alone against the galaxy. The Admiral continued. Director Nancy Green has compiled complete reports from all 17 disputed colonies. The Kepler mining stations employ 53,000 workers and provide critical resources to 12 other human worlds. The Wolf 359 colonies are home to families who have lived there for 2 generations. These people built their lives among the stars because Earth promised them a future there. We will not break that promise. Captain Jake Morrison watched his fellow humans as they absorbed the message. Dr. Kevin Park looked pale but determined. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster was already making notes, probably about military preparations. Commander Sarah Wells sat quietly, knowing that her legal expertise was now useless in a situation that would be decided by force. Admiral Jackson's message continued with more details that showed just how serious Earth was taking the situation. As of today, the human defense fleet is mobilizing. All colonial militias are being activated. Construction of new defensive positions has begun in every disputed system. If the galaxy wants to test our resolve, they will learn what 3 centuries of war and survival have taught the human race. When the message ended, the room fell silent. Finally, Lisa spoke. I guess that settles it. Now I have to go tell the Conclave that humanity is refusing their generous offer of subjugation. Are you ready for their reaction? Jake asked. No, Lisa admitted. But I don't think anyone could be ready for this. 2 hours later, Lisa walked into the main conference chamber, where Speaker Veltar and representatives from a dozen other Conclave species were waiting. The alien delegates had arranged themselves in a formal pattern that she had learned indicated serious business. Speaker Veltar, honored representatives, I bring the official response of the United Earth Government, Lisa began. She had practiced these words many times, but her voice still shook slightly. Veltar's skin color shifted to darker shades. We are prepared to hear humanity's decision. Lisa stood straighter and delivered the message she knew would change everything. Humanity respectfully declines the Conclave's offer of integration. We will not abandon our colonies or submit to restrictions on our development. We choose to remain independent. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Several alien representatives made sounds that the translation devices couldn't convert to human words. Others changed colors or emitted what might have been pheromones. Veltar itself seemed to grow taller, its forearms moving in agitated patterns. This is unprecedented, Veltar said, its musical voice now sounding like wind through broken glass. In 3,000 years of Conclave history, no species has ever refused integration protocols. Then perhaps the protocols need to be reconsidered, Lisa replied calmly. A delegate from the Zephyrian Empire leaned forward. It looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect, with multiple eyes and a voice like grinding metal. The mining rights to the Kepler system have been registered for 800 years. Humans cannot simply ignore legal claims because they are inconvenient. Legal claims that were never communicated to us, Lisa pointed out. How can humans be bound by laws we were never told existed? Ignorance of galactic law is not an excuse for violating it, replied the Trilaxian representative. This alien looked like a floating jellyfish made of crystal, and its voice came from somewhere inside its translucent body. The Wolf 359 system is sacred space. Your colonies desecrate holy ground. Lisa felt her temper rising but kept her voice level. Those colonies are home to 2 million human beings. Children have been born there. Families have lived there for decades. You watched us build those homes and said nothing. Now you want us to destroy people's lives because of claims they never knew existed. Veltar raised all 4 of its arms. For silence. The situation is regrettable, but the law is the law. The Conclave cannot make exceptions even for unfortunate circumstances. If we allowed one species to ignore proper procedures, the entire structure of galactic civilization would collapse. Maybe that structure needs to collapse, Lisa said, surprised by her own boldness. The chamber erupted in angry sounds from multiple species. Veltar's skin went almost black. You dare suggest the destruction of 3 millennia of peace and order? I suggest that any system that requires millions of people to abandon their homes for the convenience of bureaucrats is not worth preserving, Lisa replied. The Zephyrian delegate stood up. This is intolerable. Humans show complete disregard for civilized behavior. We show complete regard for our own people, Lisa shot back. Something that seems to be uncommon in your civilized galaxy. Veltar made a gesture that caused the other delegates to quiet down. Ambassador Grant, you force us to a conclusion we had hoped to avoid. The Conclave cannot permit humanity's defiance to stand. Other species might begin to question the established order. And we can't permit our people to be sacrificed for your established order, Lisa replied. Then we are at an impasse that cannot be resolved through negotiation, Veltar said solemnly. The Conclave will give humanity one final opportunity to reconsider. You have 7 standard days to withdraw your refusal and accept integration protocols. Lisa stood up. And if we don't? Then the Conclave will take whatever steps are necessary to restore proper order to this region of space, Veltar replied. The peacekeeping fleet exists to maintain galactic stability. We had hoped never to use it against an entire species, but your actions leave us little choice. How many ships? Lisa asked bluntly. Veltar's colors shifted to something that might have been sadness. More than enough. The Conclave represents over 200 species and thousands of worlds. Our combined fleet numbers in the tens of thousands. Humanity has perhaps a few hundred ships at most. Numbers aren't everything, Lisa said. They are when the difference is so vast, the Trilaxian representative interjected. Surely you see the futility of resistance. Why sacrifice lives in a war you cannot win? Lisa gathered her papers and prepared to leave. Because some things are worth fighting for even when you can't win. Apparently that's another human concept your civilization has forgotten. As she walked toward the door, Veltar called after her. Ambassador Grant, please reconsider. We do not wish to destroy humanity, accept integration, and your species will have a place in galactic civilization. Lisa paused at the doorway. As servants, not as equals. As managed subjects, not as free people. That's not a place worth having. Freedom without order is chaos, Veltar said. Order without freedom is slavery, Lisa replied, and walked out. Back in the human section of Harmony Point, Lisa found her team preparing for departure. Jake was already loading their equipment while Amy was transmitting final intelligence reports to Earth. How did they take it? Jake asked. About as well as expected, Lisa replied. They're giving us 7 more days to change our minds and then they're sending their fleet. How big a fleet? Amy asked. Tens of thousands of ships, Lisa said. Dr. Park looked up from packing his research materials. Against a few hundred human vessels. Those are terrible odds, Sarah noted. Jake finished loading a case and straightened up. I've been in fights with terrible odds before. Sometimes the smaller force wins because they want it more. And sometimes the smaller force gets wiped out, Amy pointed out. Maybe, Jake agreed. But at least they go down fighting for something they believe in. That counts for something. Lisa sat down heavily. I keep thinking about all those families on the colonies. They're going about their normal lives, working, raising their children, building their futures. They have no idea that the entire galaxy is about to come down on them. They'll know soon enough, Jake said. Admiral Jackson's message said the defense fleet is mobilizing. Every colony is being warned and fortified. Will it be enough? Dr. Park asked. Probably not, Amy answered honestly. But humans have never been good at accepting impossible odds. We tend to fight anyway and see what happens. The next morning, the human delegation boarded Captain Morrison's ship for the journey back to human space. As the Endeavour pulled away from Harmony Point, Lisa looked back at the massive station that housed representatives from hundreds of worlds. "Do you think we're making a mistake?" she asked Jake. Jake considered the question seriously. "Maybe. But I think giving up our freedom would be a bigger mistake. At least this way, if we lose as ourselves. And if we win? If we win, we'll have taught the galaxy that some species can't be pushed around. That might be worth something to future generations." 6 months had passed since the failed negotiations at Harmony Point. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had been so reluctant to abandon their colonies. From hidden shipyards scattered across human space, the defense fleet emerged in numbers that shocked even human military planners. Admiral Pete Jackson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching as dozens of ships took their positions around him. The flagship was new, built in secret during the months of preparation. It was larger and more heavily armed than any human ship that had come before it. But size was not what made it special. What made it special was what it represented: humanity's refusal to bow down. General Katie Murphy was coordinating ground forces across 17 worlds from her command center on Luna. Her screens showed the status of every human colony, every defensive position, every militia unit that had been activated. The numbers were not encouraging. Even with all their preparations, humans were vastly outnumbered. Admiral Tony Silva commanded the rapid response fleets that had been secretly positioned throughout human territory. His ships were smaller and faster than the main battle fleet, designed to hit hard and move quickly. Tony had been a fighter pilot before becoming an admiral, and he understood the value of speed and surprise. The first test came sooner than expected. A Zephyrian patrol entered the Kepler system, expecting to find humans packing their belongings and preparing to leave. Instead, they encountered something that no one in the galaxy had seen before. The Kepler defense grid. Commander Steve Harrison was stationed aboard the orbital defense platform Sentinel when the alien ships appeared. The platform was one of 12 that had been built around the Kepler mining stations during the past 6 months. Each platform was armed with weapons that human engineers had designed specifically for this moment. "Alien vessels, this is Commander Harrison of the Kepler defense grid," Steve transmitted on all frequencies. "You are entering human space without permission. Turn around and leave immediately." The response came back in the mechanical voice of a Zephyrian translator. "Human Commander, we are here to claim legal territory of the Zephyrian Empire. Remove your illegal structures and personnel immediately." Steve looked at his weapons officer, Lieutenant Bobby Clark. Bobby was young but had trained for this moment, for months. His hands were steady on the controls. "Sir, they're not turning around. 3 ships, moving toward the mining platforms." "All defense platforms, this is Sentinel," Steve broadcast. "Targets are not responding to warnings. Weapons free. Show them what it means to threaten human homes." The engagement lasted 11 minutes. The Zephyrian ships were advanced by galactic standards, with energy shields and sophisticated weapons, but they were designed for police actions against pirates and minor threats. They were not designed to fight humans who were defending their families. The human defense platforms opened fire with weapons that used principles no other species had developed. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, they fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The alien shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against chunks of metal traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Lieutenant Clark watched his targeting display as the first Zephyrian ship broke apart under the impact of dozens of projectiles. "First target destroyed, sir. Moving to target 2. The second ship tried to retreat, but Admiral Silva's rapid response fleet had been waiting in the outer system. 3 human destroyers appeared behind the fleeing aliens, cutting off their escape route. The Zephyrian ship surrendered rather than face destruction. The third alien ship managed to send a distress signal before it was destroyed. Within hours, that signal had reached every conclave world in the region. The message was simple and shocking. The humans were fighting back and they were winning. Dr. Lisa Kim, now serving as Director of Alien Affairs, monitored conclave communications from the Intelligence Center on Luna. The intercepted transmissions revealed something that gave her hope. The aliens were confused and frightened by human tactics. "They're calling emergency sessions on 12 different worlds," Lisa reported to General Murphy. "The Zephyrians are demanding immediate military support. The Trilaxians are asking how humans could destroy conclave ships so easily." General Murphy studied the tactical displays. "What are they saying about our weapons?" "They don't understand." "Them," Lisa replied. "All conclave weapons are energy-based. The concept of using solid projectiles at high velocity is completely foreign to them. Their shields and armor are designed for the wrong kind of threat." Meanwhile, the conclave's response was swift and predictable. Within days, ships from 47 different species began converging on human space. The fleet was massive beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of vessels from hundreds of worlds, all united in the goal of forcing humanity to submit. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the border patrol ship Intrepid, was the first to spot the approaching armada. His ship was stationed at the edge of human space, watching for exactly this moment. What he saw made his blood run cold. "Luna Command, this is Captain Morrison aboard the Intrepid," Jake transmitted. "I have visual contact with the Conclave fleet. Estimated number of vessels, over 8,000. Repeat, over 8,000 ships approaching human space." Admiral Jackson received the report on the bridge of the Defiance. He looked around at his officers, men and women who had trained their entire lives for battles they hoped would never come. Today, that hope was ending. "All ships, this is Admiral Jackson," he broadcast to the entire human defense fleet. "The moment we have prepared for is here. The galaxy has decided to test our resolve. They believe we will surrender when faced with overwhelming odds. They are about to learn that they fundamentally misunderstand the human spirit." The Admiral paused, looking out at the stars where somewhere his enemy was approaching. "We fight, today not just for our colonies, but for the right of every human being to determine their own destiny. We fight for the children born among the stars who deserve to grow up free. We fight because surrender is not in our nature." His voice grew harder. "The enemy has numbers. We have something they don't understand. The willingness to die rather than live as slaves. All ships, weapons free. Show them what it means to threaten human space." The Battle of the Border began at 800 hours, ship time. The Conclave fleet approached in perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. They had fought pirates and rebels before, always emerging victorious through sheer weight of numbers. But humans were not pirates. Humans were a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. They had learned to fight not just for victory but for survival itself. Admiral Silva struck first, leading his rapid response fleet in a high-speed attack on the Conclave's left flank. His ships used hit-and-run tactics, striking hard and then disappearing before the enemy could respond effectively. The aliens had never encountered this style of warfare. Colonel Frank Miller's Marines boarded 17 enemy vessels during the first day of fighting. Human soldiers trained in close-quarters combat since childhood overwhelmed alien crews who had never faced boarding actions. The psychological impact on Conclave forces was immediate and devastating. Dr. Rachel Brown's breakthrough in SHIELD harmonics technology proved crucial during the second day. Human ships could now synchronize their defensive shields, creating overlapping fields of protection that were stronger than the sum of their parts. Alien weapons that should have destroyed human vessels instead found their energy dispersed harmlessly. The Conclave had expected a quick victory. They had planned to demonstrate their power and force human surrender within hours. Instead, they found themselves locked in a grinding battle against an enemy that refused to break. On the third day, something unprecedented happened. A Conclave cruiser surrendered to a human destroyer after losing its weapons and engines. The alien crew, faced with the choice between death and capture, chose to live. Within hours, 3 more ships had surrendered. Admiral Jackson watched the tactical displays from the Defiance's bridge. Human losses were significant but manageable. Conclave losses were catastrophic. Ships from dozens of worlds were retreating in disorder. their crews terrified by an enemy that fought like nothing they had ever encountered. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Conclave Fleet," reported Communications Officer Nancy Wells. "They're requesting a ceasefire." Admiral Jackson smiled grimly. "Tell them we'll accept their surrender. Unconditional surrender." The response came back quickly. "They're not offering surrender, sir. They want to negotiate." "Then tell them this," Admiral Jackson said. "Humans don't negotiate from a position of weakness. If they want to talk, they can do it from the other side of the border they tried to cross." By the end of the third day, the largest military force in galactic history was in full retreat. The Conclave had lost over 200 ships and thousands of personnel. More importantly, they had lost something else, the certainty that their way was the only way. As the alien fleet limped away from human space, Admiral Jackson sent a message to every human world. "The border holds. The colonies are safe. The galaxy has learned that some things cannot be taken by force." The Battle of the Border had ended 3 days ago, but the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. On hundreds of worlds, alien leaders watched recordings of human ships destroying vessels that should have been invincible. The age of conclave dominance was over, even if most species didn't realize it yet. Speaker Veltar stood in the emergency assembly hall on the conclave capital world, facing representatives from over 200 species. The hall was filled with angry voices, confused questions, and demands for explanations. How had a single species with a few hundred ships defeated the greatest military force in galactic history? "The humans used weapons we had never encountered," Veltar explained for the 20th time. "Their projectile-based systems bypassed our energy shields completely. Our ships were not designed to defend against such primitive yet effective technology." Zephyrian representative hissed with frustration. "Primitive? These weapons destroyed our most advanced cruisers in minutes. How is that primitive?" "The technology is simple," replied the Trilaxian delegate. "But the application is sophisticated. Humans took basic physics and used it in ways we never considered." Admiral Silva's tactical innovations had confused every military expert in the conclave. Using small, fast ships to harass larger vessels was not new, but the coordination and precision of human attacks had been unlike anything seen before. Human ships moved like a single organism, supporting each other in ways that alien commanders found impossible to predict. On the human side, the victory celebrations were muted by the knowledge that this was far from over. Ambassador Lisa Grant sat in her new office on Guardian's Gate, the space station that humans had built in the contested border zone. The station was both a diplomatic facility and a fortress, designed to show that humans were willing to talk, but prepared to fight. Captain Beth Palmer commanded the diplomatic escort ship Liberty, which was docked at the station. Beth had been a destroyer captain during the battle, and her ship had accounted for 3 enemy vessels. Now she was tasked with protecting the diplomats who would try to turn military victory into lasting peace. The conclave's request for new negotiations had arrived 6 weeks after their defeat. The message was very different from their first contact. There was no mention of integration protocols or proper procedures. Instead, they asked for a meeting between equals to discuss the future of galactic relations. Lisa walked through the station's corridors, noting how different everything felt now. Human security guards stood at every important junction. The walls displayed artwork from all 17 human colonies, making it clear that these worlds were not going anywhere. The message was simple: humans were here to stay. The negotiation that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. For 3,000 years, the conclave had been the one setting terms and making demands. Now, they found themselves sitting across from humans who spoke as equals and made their own demands. Speaker Veltar, Lisa began the first session. "We appreciate your willingness to open new discussions. However, the terms have changed significantly since our last meeting." Veltar's skin colors shifted to neutral tones. The alien had learned not to show aggressive displays around humans. "We understand that the military action did not proceed as expected. What terms do you propose?" "First, complete recognition of human territorial sovereignty over all our current colonies," Lisa stated. No more claims, no more demands for withdrawal, no more interference in human expansion. The Zephyrian representative started to object, but Veltar raised a hand for silence. And in return, humans will participate in galactic civilization as an independent power. We will respect the sovereignty of other species, engage in fair trade, and contribute to galactic stability. But we will do so as equals, not as subjects. Dr. Kevin Park, who had been studying conclave society for months, added his analysis. The current system has created stagnation across the galaxy. Most species have not expanded significantly in centuries because they're waiting for permission. Human growth can benefit everyone through increased trade and technological development. Commander Joe Collins, who had arrived from Earth the previous week, presented the human position on military matters. The human defense fleet will continue to protect our territory and citizens. We will not interfere with other species' internal affairs, but we will respond to any threats against human worlds. The negotiations continued for weeks. Slowly, a new framework began to emerge. The conclave would remain the dominant political structure for most of the galaxy, but humans would exist outside that structure as an independent power. Trade agreements would be negotiated between equals. Territorial disputes would be resolved through arbitration rather than force. But the real changes were happening beyond the negotiating table. Species across the galaxy were questioning the rigid structures that had governed their lives for millennia. The Andorian Republic, a small alliance of mining worlds, announced their withdrawal from the conclave. The Free Traders Coalition declared their independence from conclave economic regulations. Admiral Jackson, now commanding the expanded human defense fleet, received the first request for military assistance 3 months after the border battle. The Kepler Collective, a group of human colonies, asked for help defending against pirate raids that the conclave peacekeepers seemed unable to stop. The mission was a success. Human ships destroyed the pirate base in a single, decisive strike. But more importantly, it demonstrated that humans were willing to use their military strength to protect others, not just themselves. Soon, other requests followed. The Tau Ceti Republic asked for human assistance in a border dispute with aggressive neighbors. The Vegan Commerce League requested human protection for their trade routes. Each successful mission enhanced humanity's reputation and influence. Dr. Rachel Brown, now Director of Human Technology Exchange, found herself overwhelmed with requests for human innovations. The projectile weapons that had won the border battle were just the beginning. Human mining techniques, shield technology, and ship designs were all in high demand across the galaxy. It's not just our weapons, Rachel explained to a gathering of human leaders. Other species are fascinated by our approach to problem solving. We don't wait for permission to try new ideas. We experiment, we fail, we learn, and we try again. Most galactic species have forgotten how to innovate. The transformation of galactic politics accelerated over the following months. The rigid hierarchy that had maintained peace for 3,000 years was giving way to a more dynamic system. Species that had been content to follow conclave directives for centuries were beginning to assert their own interests. Some conclave leaders tried to resist these changes. They argued that human influence was destabilizing the careful order that had prevented galactic wars. But their arguments fell on deaf ears. Too many species had seen the benefits of independence and innovation. A year after the border battle, Captain Morrison found himself patrolling space that had become very different from the galaxy humans first encountered. Independent trading ships flew routes that had been controlled by conclave regulations for centuries. New colonies were being established by species that had not expanded in generations. The galaxy was becoming a more chaotic, but also more vibrant, place. The final symbol of the new order came when humans erected a sign at the edge of their territory. It was simple, direct, and completely in character for the species that had refused to bow to galactic authority. Beyond this point, human space, the rest of the galaxy won't ask why. The sign became famous throughout known space. Some species saw it as arrogant, others saw it as inspirational, but everyone understood its meaning. Humans had carved out their place in the galaxy through strength and determination, and they were not going anywhere. Lisa Grant, now Secretary of Galactic Affairs, reflected on the changes as she watched ships from dozens of species dock at Guardian's Gate. The station had become a major hub for independent trade and diplomacy, a place where species could meet as equals rather than as subjects and masters. "We didn't set out to change the galaxy," she told a reporter from the Independent World's news service. "We just wanted to protect our homes and our freedom. But sometimes protecting what you value most requires changing everything else." Ibor. Conclave still existed, but it was no longer the only path to galactic civilization. Humans had proven that there were other ways to live among the stars, ways that didn't require surrendering independence or accepting permanent subjugation as ships from across the galaxy came and went from human space. They carried more than just cargo and passengers. They carried ideas about freedom, innovation, and the right of every species to determine its own destiny. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Jackson's final log entry, recorded 5 years after first contact, captured the transformation perfectly. "We came to the stars seeking new homes and found a galaxy full of species who had forgotten how to dream. We reminded them that the universe belongs to those brave enough to reach for it. Some call us disruptive. Some call us dangerous. They're not wrong, but they're learning that dangerous allies are better than safe masters.